See, there's shrinkage. The brain is very small. There's a lot of space between. These ventricles are gigantic. So no question, this is an impaired person. Just looking at the surface of the brain, you can't be sure that there's any abnormality. We'll have to cut into it. Oh, he has very large ventricles. That is a very large fourth ventricle, and also he's lost a lot of pigment laterally. It's starting to look like an impaired brain.
CTE is a devastating neurodegenerative disease researchers believe is found in the brains of people who have experienced repeated head trauma. They could be victims of domestic violence, members of the military, or football players. The disease can only be definitively diagnosed after death. Researchers have found the disease in scores of deceased players. Many of the names are familiar: Junior Seau, Dwight Clark, Frank Gifford. Kevin's family wanted to help find answers. A few days after his death, they decided to donate his brain to be studied by researchers in Boston.
It has a very distinct pathologic signature. It tends to affect certain parts of the brain.
As it progresses throughout your life, it can cause problems with cognition, problems with mood, problems with behavior. And the number one thing is changes your personality.
The process is the family calls our brain bank numbers. They will arrange for a local person to go out to the funeral home where the person is and have the brain and the spinal cord removed. And then it's air freighted to our labs. Under the best of circumstances, it usually takes 2 months to process the brain. But because we have a backlog and we can't even get to it right away, that's wow. His ventricle is very large. Yeah, it's notched. Even his hippocampus and amygdala look too small. Ooh, so now we have a better chance to look at that membrane. First of all, it's really irregular. The corpus callosum is thin, but then this membrane should be that white, and it should be nice and straight, and it's all gelatinous and irregular. It looks damaged. Then we make our routine blocks. We take our standard sections from the 29 to 30 areas. It goes through a series of processing, gets processed into wax. They'll be cut on a microtome into extremely thin slices, and those thin slices will be stained with a variety of stains and immunostains. And then the ultimate result is this box of slides. And we'll look through these, and this will form the basis of the pathologic diagnosis. And that's done completely independently of what the clinicians are doing.
And then all the families, they go through this kind of long, iterative process where we gather a bunch of clinical information. We gather medical history, psychological history, substance abuse history. We gather a history of their cognitive, behavioral, and mood symptoms, what kind of symptoms they had, what was the course of those symptoms. And they do this through over-the-phone interviews. They do this through online questionnaires.
And they basically, in a sense, paint a picture of what this patient had. And in a sense, they come up with their own clinical diagnosis, and we try to come up with, we show them our pathologic diagnosis, and hopefully the two correlate.
The purpose of this is to move us closer to being able to diagnose the CTE during life and figuring out the specific symptoms associated with it.
You know, this is the biggest brain bank in the world by far that is interested in traumatic injury to the nervous system. We're getting more and more women's brains. Traditionally, we've gotten very few, but we're now starting to see some women cheerleaders, soccer players, cyclists, and they're coming in.
There's a million reasons why you don't want to believe this is true. If you're a parent, no parent wants to believe that they put their kid at a risk that they didn't know.
That joy that I used to enjoy, that I used to do watching it is kind of gone away a little bit because I'm always thinking about, you know, what is this hit doing to the head?
Usually try to catch a little football here and there, but I'm often just trying to see how they're talking about concussions, if they're acknowledging concussions, how they're handling return to play.
I used to love football. I mean, I still see that it's a wonderful sport to watch. I mean, I get it. I mean, it's the beauty of football is the strategy plus the skill, the athleticism.
CTE is real, but it's real in everything. You can get it from any contact sport. Yeah, I'm sure you had CTE. I mean, like I said, I'm sure I have it. You know, I have multiple concussions from playing football. I'm sure, I don't know what the level of it, but football has opened a lot of doors for both me and my family and my brothers. And football is not the reason that Kevin developed a mental illness. This direct link from saying CTE and football gives you mental illness, That's not something I'm ready to say. Absolutely, the science is there for it.
We can't ignore this. We can't jeopardize these young individuals' lives. I really want us to do something about this disease. I don't think this should be happening. I'm a doctor.
Like many young boxers, Omar Valenzuela looks up to Muhammad Ali. And like Ali, Omar has big goals.
To win a title, so that's one of my goals.
In his prime, Ali won 3 titles, and now at 70, he's in the fight of his life with Parkinson's disease.
We really don't know why he has Parkinson's, but it could have been from boxing, but nobody knows yet. That's why it's important to donate time and energy to research, so we can find that out.
Go.
For the first time, professional fighters and brain health are being studied in real time. Fighters get a state-of-the-art MRI, memory, cognitive, speech, and mood tests, as well as a clinical exam to see if subtle changes in the brain can be detected over time.
One of the critical elements of the study is being able to determine why some athletes develop these long-term complications and some don't. The hope is by following people over time, we can learn where earliest changes of injury occur and hopefully predict which of these athletes are at risk of developing these long-term complications. Because if you know that, there's the potential then to intervene and to prevent some of these chronic problems from developing.
Just 9 months into the study, early results show that brain matter is changing, especially in fighters who have spent more time in the ring.
The volume of the brain is shrinking, and the fibers that course across the brain are starting to dissipate or be injured.
It's still too early to know what these changes in brain matter mean for young fighters like Omar, but as long as he's healthy, he's keeping his eye on the prize.
If something's wrong with your brain, something's wrong with your body, you shouldn't be to the point where you shouldn't be boxing. You shouldn't be boxing. If I'm healthy, then I'm going to stay in the sport.
At Cleveland Clinic, I'm Erica Foreman.